Sylvester Stallone is the most improbable of movie stars. He's shortish, speaks in a flat growl, and as for acting, well, you get a curled lip, a cocked eyebrow, and that's about it.
Sylvester Stallone is the writer, director, and star of Rocky Balboa.
There's no one that I know that is a better example of what you can do in this country, because this guy as a young man had a dream.
Sylvester Stallone, a man known for famous movie roles, wasn't expecting his day to take such an unexpected turn when his wallet went missing. Sylvester Stallone was in Los Angeles, visiting an old cafe he loved. It was one of those rare places where he could grab a coffee and enjoy a moment of peace without cameras flashing around him. Despite being a global icon, Sylvester enjoyed the simpler things in life. He loved people.
Sylvester Stallone has played some of the most heroic and underdog characters in cinematic history.
Often taking time to chat with staff or compliment a waiter on a job well done. But that day, as he reached for his wallet to pay the bill, his heart sank. It wasn't there. Immediately, his mind raced. Could he have dropped it? Left it in his car? Or worse, had someone taken it? His wallet wasn't just a leather case holding cards and cash. It contained personal notes, cherished photos of his family, and a lucky charm he'd carried since his earliest days in Hollywood.
The fighter, yet no one paid any attention to him, and I felt the same way as an actor, so I said if I could take my particular plight as an actor.
Losing it felt like losing a piece of himself. But little did he know, the wallet had already found its way into the hands of someone who would change his day, and maybe even his life. About 20 miles away, a 17-year-old named Ryan Carter was cycling back home after a long day of helping his dad at their small mechanic shop. Ryan was a hardworking teenager, balancing school and his part-time job to support his family. He wasn't the type to complain, even when things got tough. His parents had taught him to value honesty and hard work above everything else. As Ryan pedaled down the quiet street, something caught his eye. Lying near the edge of the sidewalk was a wallet, its worn leather glinting under the late afternoon sun. He stopped his bike and picked it up, flipping it open to check for an ID. The moment he saw the name, he froze. Sylvester Stallone. Wait, the Sylvester Stallone? Ryan muttered under his breath, barely believing it. He pulled out a few items from the wallet to confirm: credit cards with the same name and a folded picture of a smiling family. Ryan's first instinct wasn't to keep it. Sure, Stallone was a superstar with millions of dollars, but that didn't matter to Ryan. His parents had always told him, if it's not yours, don't keep it. So, with no second thought, Ryan decided to return the wallet. But how could he even reach someone like Sylvester Stallone? It wasn't like he had his number on speed dial. Ryan glanced around, hoping for some divine inspiration. Then he noticed a business card tucked inside one of the wallet's compartments. It had a phone number on it, along with the name of Stallone's assistant. With his heart pounding, Ryan pulled out his phone and dialed the number. "Hello? This is Susan," a voice answered after a few rings. Ryan stammered nervously. "Hi, I think I found something that belongs to Mr. Stallone." The assistant immediately perked up. "Wait, are you serious? His wallet? He's been looking everywhere for it." Ryan explained where he had found it, and within minutes, Susan arranged for a car to come pick him up. "Mr. Stallone would like to thank you in person," she added. Ryan's heart raced. Meeting Sylvester Stallone? This was not how he'd expected his day to go. He quickly freshened up, making sure he looked presentable. Though nervous, he reminded himself that he was doing the right thing. When the car pulled up in front of Ryan's house, his jaw dropped. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows sat idling, and the driver stepped out, nodding at him politely. "You must be Ryan. Let's go." As they drove, Ryan's mind swirled with questions. What would Stallone be like in real life? Would he even care about a lost wallet? But most of all, Ryan felt proud of himself. This was about doing the right thing, not about meeting a celebrity. When the car finally stopped, Ryan stepped out onto the driveway of a grand, yet surprisingly warm and inviting mansion. The assistant greeted him with a smile, and within moments, the man himself appeared. "Hey, you must be the kid who found my wallet," Stallone said, his voice unmistakable. He extended a hand, and Ryan shook it firmly, trying not to seem starstruck. Yeah, I'm Ryan," he said. "I just thought you'd want this back." Stallone looked genuinely touched as he took the wallet. "You have no idea how much this means to me," he said. Then, with a grin, he added, "But I'm not letting you leave empty-handed." What happened next left Ryan completely speechless. Keep watching to find out how Stallone surprised him. Sylvester Stallone wasn't the kind of man to let a good deed go unnoticed. As he looked at the teenager standing before him, wallet in hand, he saw something familiar in the boy's expression: humility, determination, and a quiet strength. It reminded Stallone of himself when he was young, struggling to find his place in the world while holding on to his principles. After thanking Ryan for his honesty, Stallone invited him inside. Ryan hesitated at first, overwhelmed by the idea of stepping into a celebrity's home. The mansion was impressive, with high ceilings, vintage movie posters from Stallone's films, and a collection of awards displayed along the walls. Yet it felt surprisingly homey, with family pictures and a warm living room. Stallone noticed Ryan's awe and chuckled. "It's just a house," he said. "The people in it matter more." Ryan smiled, his nerves easing slightly. As they sat down, Stallone asked him to share more about himself. The teenager, still a little shy, spoke about his family, their mechanic shop, and how he spent most of his time helping out after school. Stallone listened intently, nodding and occasionally throwing in a question. As Ryan talked, Stallone couldn't help but admire the young man's character. In a world where most people might have kept the wallet without a second thought, Ryan had gone out of his way to do the right thing. That kind of honesty was rare, and Stallone wanted to make sure Ryan knew it wasn't taken for granted. "You remind me of someone," Stallone said, leaning back in his chair. "Me, about 50 years ago." Ryan looked puzzled. "Me? How?" Stallone chuckled, recalling his early days in New York City. He shared a brief story about struggling to make ends meet while chasing his dream of becoming an actor.
This is before I came there. There was every actor. I was like the last actor. So when I read it, I said, there's a good idea here, but it's a mess because I don't feel any sympathy.
He worked odd jobs, including cleaning lion cages at the zoo, just to keep the lights on. "It was tough," Stallone admitted. "But the one thing I never gave up on was doing the right thing, even when it felt like no one else was watching." Ryan nodded, absorbing the lesson. He couldn't believe he was sitting across from a Hollywood legend, hearing stories that felt more personal than anything he'd seen on screen. After a while, Stallone shifted the conversation. "So Ryan, I owe you big time for returning this," he said, holding up the wallet. "And I'm not just talking about what's inside. This thing holds memories, pieces of my life that I can't replace." Ryan shrugged modestly. "I was just doing what anyone else would do." Stallone raised an eyebrow. "Trust me, kid. Not everyone would have done what you did." Then, with a smile, Stallone stood up and motioned for Ryan to follow him. They walked through the house, past a gym filled with weights and boxing gear, and into a spacious garage. Ryan's eyes widened as he took in the sight. A collection of luxury cars, motorcycles, and even a few classic vehicles. Stallone stopped in front of a sleek black Camaro, its polished surface gleaming under the garage lights. "This was my first big purchase when I started making real money," he said, running a hand along the hood. Ryan's jaw dropped. "That's amazing," Stallone grinned. "You like cars?" "Yeah, my dad and I work on them all the time," Ryan replied. "I love figuring out how they run and bringing them back to life." Hearing this, Stallone's eyes lit up. "Well, how about this? Why don't you and your dad come over sometime and take a closer look at this one? It could use a little tuning up." Ryan couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," Stallone said. "But that's not all." He led Ryan back into the living room and handed him an envelope. "Consider this a small thank you," Stallone said. Ryan hesitated, unsure if he should accept it. But Stallone gave him a reassuring nod. "You earned it." When Ryan opened the envelope, he nearly dropped it. Inside was a check, a significant amount that could help his family with the bills they had been struggling to pay. "Mr. Stallone, this is too much," Ryan stammered. Stallone shook his head. "It's not about the money, Ryan. It's about rewarding someone who did the right thing." The moment was overwhelming for Ryan. He had gone from an ordinary day at the mechanic shop to meeting one of the biggest stars in the world and receiving a life-changing gift. But more than the check or the opportunity to work on Stallone's car, what stayed with him was the kindness and humility of the man who had played so many heroes on screen. As Ryan prepared to leave, Stallone clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You're going to do great things, kid," he said. "Just keep being the person you are." Little did Ryan know, Stallone wasn't done surprising him yet. You'd be surprised what happened next. Sylvester Stallone couldn't shake the thought of Ryan even after the teenager had left his home. There was something about the boy's honesty and determination that resonated with him on a deep level. Stallone had always valued grit and integrity, and Ryan seemed to embody both. So, that evening, as Stallone sat in his living room, flipping through channels, he began to think about ways to truly make a difference in Ryan's life. The check he had given him was a start, but Stallone felt there was more he could do. After all, the boy hadn't returned the wallet expecting anything in return. It was a selfless act, and Stallone believed such acts deserved recognition far beyond material rewards. The next morning, Stallone called a few friends in the entertainment and business industries. Among them were influential names who owed him a favor or two. One of these friends owned a major automotive company that specialized in restoring and selling high-end classic cars. Stallone explained Ryan's story, his passion for cars, and his family's mechanic shop. The friend was immediately interested. "If he's hardworking, I think we can do something," they said. Stallone smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. By the end of the day, Stallone had arranged a visit for Ryan and his father to the company's headquarters. But he didn't stop there. He had another plan, a surprise that would leave Ryan speechless. A few days later, Ryan received a call from Stallone's assistant. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Why would someone from Stallone's team be contacting him again? But when the assistant explained that Stallone had arranged for him and his father to meet with a top automotive company, Ryan was stunned. "Are you serious?" he asked, barely able to contain his excitement. "Absolutely," the assistant replied. "And Mr. Stallone insists you bring your dad along. He says it's a family thing." Ryan couldn't wait to share the news with his father. That evening, over dinner, he explained everything. His dad, a quiet and hardworking man who had spent decades running their small shop, was also astonished. "He didn't have to do this," his dad said, shaking his head in disbelief. "That's the kind of person he is," Ryan replied with a smile. The day of the visit arrived, and Ryan and his father drove to the company's headquarters. an impressive facility filled with classic cars and advanced technology. They were greeted warmly by the staff who had been briefed on Ryan's story. As they toured the facility, Ryan couldn't help but marvel at the craftsmanship and innovation on display. Then came the real surprise. At the end of the tour, the company's CEO approached Ryan and his father with an offer: a partnership that would allow their small mechanic shop to specialize in restoring and selling classic cars, with the company providing training, resources, and even some of their first projects. Ryan's father was speechless. For years, their shop had struggled to stay afloat, competing with larger businesses and dealing with outdated equipment. This partnership was more than an opportunity. It was a lifeline. "We believe in rewarding people who show integrity," the CEO said. "And from what Mr. Stallone has told us, you've earned this." But the surprises weren't over yet. As Ryan and his father prepared to leave, a sleek, fully restored Mustang was rolled out into the showroom.
The Ford Mustang. Now this is an American product of the good old US of A. Ironically though, it was actually designed by a Brit. You see, the old Anglo-American partnership, it still worked.
The keys were handed to Ryan, and the staff explained that it was a personal gift from Stallone. "Mr. Stallone said this was for you," the CEO said. "He wanted you to have something to remind you of what honesty and hard work can lead to." Ryan was overwhelmed. The car was a dream come true, but more than that, it was a symbol of how one simple act of kindness could change everything. That's not all. Little did they know, Stallone had one more surprise up his sleeve. Keep watching to see how this story takes an even more unbelievable turn. As they drove home that evening, Ryan couldn't stop smiling. His father, who rarely showed much emotion, placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you, son," he said quietly. Even the days following their visit to the automotive company were a whirlwind for Ryan and his father. Word of their new partnership spread quickly in their small town, and customers began flocking to their shop, excited to see the changes this collaboration would bring. But as thrilled as Ryan was with how things were unfolding, he couldn't shake the feeling that Stallone's generosity wasn't done yet. And he was right. Just a week later, Ryan received another call from Stallone's assistant. This time, it wasn't about cars or partnerships. Stallone had invited Ryan and his entire family to Los Angeles for what the assistant briefly described as a special event. Ryan was puzzled, but excited. What could Stallone possibly have planned now? The trip to Los Angeles felt surreal. For Ryan, who had spent most of his life in a small town, the glitz and glamour of Hollywood were like stepping into another world. Stallone had arranged for them to stay at a luxurious hotel overlooking the city, complete with every amenity they could imagine. It was more than Ryan's family had ever experienced, and they were deeply grateful for Stallone's thoughtfulness. The morning of the event, a limousine arrived to take Ryan, his parents, and his younger sister to the venue. They had no idea where they were going, but the excitement in the air was palpable. As they drove through the busy streets of Los Angeles, Ryan's mother kept marveling at the sights, while his sister snapped pictures on her phone. Finally, they pulled up in front of a grand theater. A red carpet stretched out before them, lined with photographers and fans. Ryan's heart raced. "What is this?" he asked the driver, but the man just smiled and gestured for them to step out. As they walked down the red carpet, a few people began to recognize Stallone's guests. Reporters snapped pictures, and some whispered, "Is that the kid who found Stallone's wallet?" Ryan couldn't believe it. People knew who he was. Inside the theater, they were escorted to front-row seats. The room was filled with Hollywood stars, directors, and producers, all gathered for what seemed to be a film premiere. It wasn't until Stallone himself walked on stage that Ryan began to piece things together. Stallone took the microphone, greeted the crowd, and began to tell a story, Ryan's story.
He did Cobra, and he also did Rambo, and he said he would like Ryan Gosling to be Rambo.
That is incredible. He's one of my favorite actors.
He spoke about the young man's honesty, how he returned the wallet without expecting anything in return, and how that single act of kindness had inspired him. "This kid reminded me of something important," Stallone said, looking directly at Ryan, "that no matter how much success you have, what matters most is how you treat people." The audience applauded, and Ryan's cheeks flushed with both pride and embarrassment. Then Stallone gestured for Ryan to join him on stage. As Ryan stood beside him, Stallone put a hand on his shoulder. "Ryan, you didn't just return a wallet. You set an example. And I want to show the world what people like you can achieve." He paused, letting the moment sink in before continuing. "That's why I'm announcing something special tonight. I'm funding a scholarship in Ryan's name, aimed at helping young people who show extraordinary character and integrity." The audience erupted into applause. Ryan stood frozen, struggling to process what he had just heard. A scholarship? In his name? But Stallone wasn't done. And to make sure Ryan gets a chance to pursue his own dreams, he added, "I'm personally covering his college tuition, no matter where he chooses to go." Ryan's mother broke into tears. His father clapped harder than anyone else in the room. And Ryan? He couldn't speak. All he could do was hug Stallone, overwhelmed by gratitude. The rest of the evening was a blur. Ryan met celebrities, took pictures, and even exchanged a few words with some of Stallone's closest friends. But what stood out most wasn't the glitz or glamour. It was the way Stallone had used his platform to highlight something as simple yet powerful as honesty. The night ended with Stallone pulling Ryan aside. "You've got a bright future, kid," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "Don't ever forget where you came from, but don't be afraid to aim high. You've got what it takes." Ryan nodded, knowing this was a moment he'd carry with him forever. But there was still one question lingering in his mind. What had Stallone seen in him that made him go to such lengths? The answer, as Stallone explained, was simple. "You reminded me of myself when I was your age. A little rough around the edges, but full of heart. And that's something you can't fake." And just like that, Ryan's life took a turn he could never have imagined. But as he'd soon discover, this was only the beginning of an even more incredible journey. The weeks following the grand event were life-changing for Ryan and his family. The scholarship announcement in his name became a major headline, drawing attention from news outlets across the country. Suddenly, Ryan was receiving calls from journalists, schools, and even local businesses who wanted to collaborate on community projects. But as overwhelming as the attention was, Ryan remained grounded. Stallone's advice echoed in his mind, "Never forget where you came from." He knew this newfound recognition wasn't just about him. It was about the values his parents had instilled in him and the importance of doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Back at home, Stallone's generosity continued to ripple through their lives. With the financial burden of college lifted, Ryan's parents could focus on expanding their auto repair shop. Thanks to Stallone's connections, they secured a deal to work with several major dealerships, ensuring steady business for years to come. But the biggest surprise came when Ryan received an unexpected package in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note from Stallone, along with a signed first edition script of one of his movies. The note read, "Ryan, this script represents a dream that seemed impossible at the time. But dreams come true when you work hard, stay true to yourself, and never give up. Keep chasing yours. Sly." The gesture brought tears to Ryan's eyes. It wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol of everything Stallone had achieved and the belief he had in Ryan's future. Ryan decided to use his platform to inspire others. He began speaking at local schools, sharing his story, and encouraging other teens to embrace honesty and kindness. His journey became a beacon of hope, showing that even the simplest good deeds could lead to extraordinary outcomes. And years later, as Ryan stood on the stage of his college graduation, he looked back on the chain of events that had brought him there. It all started with a wallet and a choice to do the right thing. What would you have done if you'd found that wallet? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And before you go, click the next video shown on your screen. You're going to love it.